And we are live. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to A Bookish Moment. I am Sarah Burr, your host for this afternoon. My co-host, J.C. Kenney, sends his regards. He is working from his new job and won't be able to join us today. So he is going to be missing out on a very timely and fascinating conversation as we dive into the world of billionaires, social media platforms, free speech, moral responsibility, all of that good stuff that, hey, are we talking about fiction or real life? With our wonderful guest this afternoon, Matt Cost, who has joined us here before, so he may be a familiar face to you guys if you have caught our shows in the past. But Matt, welcome back. It's great to have you.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's great to see you, Sarah. I'm sorry that we're going to miss JC, but I guess he's probably in a panic in the panhandle somewhere, right?
If wouldn't he would love to be working in the Panhandle at the I think at the moment. We will miss him, but we're gonna have a lot of fun talking about some pretty interesting topics today as we dive into your Chronicles of Max Creed series. When you joined us last year, we had been talking about this brand new series. It's a lot different than your novels that you were writing that took place in a state that we both share, Maine. So it's going to be really fascinating to kind of poke your brain and see like how this world has expanded and like what the difference is between writing these like high action, intense, like tech thrillers that you have crafted versus the kind of the detective work that you've done in your Mainely series. So it'll be a great show for our wonderful viewers who are joining us today. We've got Farmhouse Reader saying hello to you too. We've got Regina the Southernista saying good afternoon all. So sad JC isn't with us. Yes, but he is alive. He's alive. Don't worry, Regina. He is just working hard. So without further ado, let us dive in. Matt, can you, for folks who may not be familiar with you, any chance you can kind of walk us through your career? I know that you've worn many different hats over the years that eventually led you to writing. Share a little bit about your journey with us, if you would.
The journey was kind of an interesting one. I wrote my first book fresh out of college, which was a historical novel called I Am Cuba about Fidel Castro and the Cuban Revolution. I finished the first draft, realized a few things, one of which was that it was horrible and that I really needed to work on my writing and I needed to visit Cuba. So I went about the business of life and I opened some businesses and had some kids and had a video store and I had a gym and I owned a mystery bookstore called the Coffee Dog Mystery Bookshop, which now lives on, even though it closed its doors some 25 years ago. It lives on in the pages of my Mainly Mystery series. But anyways, in 2016, I got a chance to visit the island nation of Cuba, and I came back and I rewrote that original novel of mine from 1991, and I got it published in 2020. And it was my first traditionally published book, and it really was like a shooting star of success because 29 short years, boom, I was published. So it hardly took me any time at all, right? And that was my first traditionally published book, and any day now should be my 19th published book should be out, which
19,
is
wow.
Everything versus Max Creed. So it's been a busy 6 years for me.
I would say that is this is just purely so that I realize either how much of an underachiever that I am. Those 19 books. Did you write them all in that 6 year time frame, or is this something that you've kind of been collecting ideas and stories throughout, your life, and kind of waiting for the signs to publish them?
Three of them were written before I published the Cuba book, but they were collecting dust on a bottom shelf, as
Mm-hmm.
most authors know. Sometimes it's where
Mm-hmm.
things are relegated to. But I don't know that you should really feel bad. Don't you have a 14 book series as one of your many series?
That's true, but I did start in 2017, so
Okay.
you've got me beat. Wow, it's always so amazing. We've had many folks come on the show at this point, and the number of times that you kind of hear about that first book that it takes longer to kind of get over the finish line from either from writing it to publication, or from writing it to writing a book that eventually gets published. Um, and then once that first book is out of the gate, it just seems like people can't stop the storytelling. What is it about storytelling, Matt, that really pushes you forward, makes you keep putting pen to paper, fingers to keyboard?
I absolutely like creating new worlds and new characters and new people and living amongst them. So it's certainly something that I enjoy. And, often it allows me to learn different things. In my Clay Wolfe Trap series, I became an aficionado on, cults and genome editing and unidentified aerial phenomena and, just multiples of things that was of interest to me that let me dive into them and then recreate them in story form. I'd say the modern day chronicles of Max Creed is kind of allowing me to vent a little bit about current politics and things like that, and let me it's almost a healing process for me, I think, by letting it out.
I love that you're getting that experience, because one thing that I feel that I love writing my cozy mysteries. I love being in my safe, warm, welcoming communities. But there's often not like a lot of opportunity to voice the frustrations of kind of the political landscape that we're seeing in our country right now. That's not the case for Max Creed and his crew. So can you kind of set up for us, maybe for folks who aren't familiar with book one in the series, can you set up Max Creed and who he is and what his mission is? And then we'll kind of talk a little bit more about what he's up against in book two.
So Max Creed is an anti-hero in the fact that he had a horrible event happen in his past. On his wedding day, his bride was shot and killed by an assassin paid for by an ultra wealthy billionaire who he had pursued and tried to jail and got off on a technicality, as billionaires so often do, with their team of lawyers and their ability to pay off things and whatnot. So Max Creed, of course, hunted down the assassin and killed him. And then he went after the billionaire and brick by brick tore down that person's life, showing his wife and family and friends who he really was, until finally he abducted him and made a deal with the billionaire to not kill him if the billionaire gave him $1 billion, which he had in offshore accounts from his illegal heroin smuggling trade that Max Creed had, jailed him for, but that he'd gotten off of. And Max Creed said, fine, threw, and then got him addled on the very drugs that he'd been peddling to the point of him being brain dead, checked him into an insane asylum in Uzbekistan, and left him there. And then Max Creed just kind of went on a bender where he was drinking himself to death when a man named John Little ran into him in a bar in Dhaka. And slowly the two men forged a bond and came up with this plan to find justice for those who have been wronged by the ultra wealthy.
Mm.
And they put together a band of not so merry people, including, John Little, of course, and then Scarlett, who's a former assassin from Brazil, and Scads Miller, who is a tech guru, and Tucker Friedman, who is a financier, and Marion, who is a great legal mind. And they are all orphans so that they cannot have their family used against them. And they set about the business of taking on cases of people that have been wronged by the ultra wealthy.
They're like, it reminds me of the Avengers, where they're just like assembling, especially in the opening pages of book two, where we're kind of getting the briefing of uh, this upcoming case that they are taking. And you describe Max as an anti-hero, and it just kind of goes to show how I think how warped our society is at this point, that what Max is doing resonates so deeply with, I think, with readers, of like, yes, like go after go after the billionaires, make bring those who are committing wrong to justice. How did you come up with this idea, though, in the first place? I'm like, it reads like a movie. It's like so cinematic. It's so gripping, and you're just kind of thrown into the action. How did you go from your Mainly Mysteries to writing about Max Creed?
Well, there's a couple different ways to answer that. I also have another book series, my Clay Wolfe Trap series, which has 6 books in it. And I've completed that as of last year. I'm not going to continue that. And that's a sort of sly way of saying that there's a connection between that series and the Max Creed series. That anybody that's read the Clay Wolfe series will find out at the end of the Everything versus Max Creed when that comes out in the next week or two. Um, and then on top of that, Robin Hood. I always loved Robin
Mm.
Hood. I grew up loving Robin Hood. It's such a great tale. And so that's a little bit of what Max Creed is based upon is the Robin Hood character, as are the other characters in the book. John Little being Little John,
Mm-hmm.
Tucker Friedman being Friar Tuck, Scarlett being Will Scarlett, Scads Miller being the Miller. So all of these characters are plays off of Robin Hood, which was always a favorite of mine. Of not in this case, in Robin Hood, it's steal from the rich and give to the poor. But in this case, it's the not so merry band, and they're avenging the poor who have been wronged by the rich.
Yes, and in book two, we have a setup that is, I have to wonder how much either fun you had creating this evil conglomerate that we're going to be discussing soon, or if it was really just something. It's like, what, it's not far-fetched from where things currently stand, if you go to certain platforms on the internet. But I want to say real quickly here, Matt, we have DHBA saying good afternoon to everybody, and in response to your summary of the world of Max Creed, Regina has a capital wow. So I mean, you've got people hooked. So let's talk about Everything versus Max Creed, which is book two. And for folks tuning in, the word everything is very important in this instance, where it's a capital E and a capital T in the word. So tell us a little bit about everything and what that means, Matt.
Uh, Everything is a social media site nicknamed ET with an avatar of Al, capital A, capital L, because one of the big things these days is AI, artificial intelligence. And that really never made much sense to me. So my social media tycoon, Alfred Prince, is going to take that up a level, and instead of making it artificial intelligence, it becomes artificial learning. And this site of his, using the avatar of Al, is going to be able to learn from people and information that has been gathered. Alfred Prince also, you know, as on top of the social media site, has a mobile cell phone company and computer search engine. So between these three things, our triangulation, he's able to amass more information on individuals than has ever been amassed before. And he's going to start to use that to really direct them on how to act. It's not just to influence their spending habits, but to change their habits, pull triggers, set them off the wall as need be, because he wants to create chaos and anarchy and then step in and scoop up the pieces.
Yeah. Oh gosh, he is such a interesting figure when he is first introduced, because you kind of get that polished CEO that's like, oh, like, you can't blame technology for what people do. And to kind of set the scene for our viewers, on this case that Max and his group have been commissioned on, just to let you guys know, bit of a trigger warning regarding suicide. But the opening of the book focuses on this everything platform being used to really target the bullying of a young teenage girl, where nude photos are shared. She sees them, she believes her life is over, and she takes her own life. And so her parents come to Max and Sherwood Industries, they come to request Max's services. And we kind of begin to learn about everything from there. One of the things that quickly pops up is, how responsible is a platform for the actions of its users? And, I think we can talk about that in terms of, what we see on Facebook, what we see on YouTube, what we see on all of these platforms, of how responsible are the places that are hosting this information. And it's such an interesting question that you explore. But do you want to kind of talk about where Alfred Prince sees himself among that, and what his views are at this point, at the start of the novel?
Yeah, and you talked about him as being this polished CEO, and most billionaires do have a good outward appearance, and you don't know quite what they're doing behind closed doors. And Alfred Prince doesn't really drink and surfs and does all these other very healthy things that he engages in, because he has the money to pretty much do anything he wants. But at the same time, we're going to start to peel back layers of the darker side of Alfred Prince and the corruption and rot that the money that he possesses has started to work its insidious way upon him. So Alfred Alfred Prince and his site are pretty much everything tells you what it is. It allows everything to happen on it. And he doesn't feel responsible in any way. If, a 12-year-old gets on there and, sees something graphic that they don't want to, that's the parent's fault, not Alfred Prince's fault. That's the child's fault, not Alfred Prince's fault. It's always somebody else's fault. And that's what he truly believes, that, he's providing a service. But then that service itself begins to warp and he starts to use it more as a weapon.
Yeah, that crazy stuff that we hope that you're writing science fiction, and things like that. But there's a lot of like real like technical jargon that you use in the book, and I was wondering, like, did you, for research purposes, like what was the research into this, like, because I know that you mentioned like all of the regulations about whether or not like the FTC gets involved, the FCC, like things like that. And I'm curious, like, was it hard to use like the current realistic structures that we have in place today in society, and like have everything kind of overcome those, so that perhaps like the internet becomes an even less safe place than it is right now?
Well, everything is going to prove to be almost capable of overcoming all of them.
Mm-hmm.
But the research, has gotten so much easier than when I wrote I Am Cuba in 1991.
Mm-hmm.
There is so much at our fingertips, and, you know, as you know, I'm sure researching, but I can type in what would the FTC do to stop a monopoly? And, then I start diving deeper from there to make sure that it's all accurate and
Mm-hmm.
whatnot. But, and you can do that right at your computer. You don't have to go sit in the library anymore and peel through the archives and, look up these government regulations and go down to the town office. So much, just about everything, no pun intended,
Mm-hmm.
is available on the internet. So, for something like that, that's a lot of what I do for
Mm-hmm.
research. I would say that the other side of my research is if I was a billionaire, what would I do? And it's just a thoughtful reflection. And, it makes you wonder, would you still be a good person? If there were no repercussions for doing bad things, would you slowly sway that way or not? And
Mm-hmm.
it's an impossible question to answer, I think, until you actually get $1 billion.
It is, but it's also like it feels like it shouldn't be, because it's like, I don't know. There's like a sense of like there are a lot of things in the world that like I wouldn't do because I would be afraid that they would hurt me. In Max mentions a lot about like partying and like his like the amount of drugs that get consumed in the world of billionaires. I'm like, that seems too dangerous for me. I don't know. It is. I mean, it's an impossible question to answer, but I just like have to wonder, like, does money just inherently make people less good inside? Um,
If you got
that's,
pulled over for speeding 30 miles an hour over the speed limit, would you
mm,
use your power to get yourself out of it?
I mean, I
Uh,
cannot imagine, like, again, this is a set, like, I cannot
yeah.
imagine going 30 miles over the speed limit, because that would be dangerous and I don't want to die. And I hate driving. But I mean, yeah, like, it's such like interest, like when you have no limits or boundaries, like
Right.
where do you impose them? Um, oh gosh, I could spin on that question for a long time, but Regina has a question for you. And it's not to asking. Let me start again. Not asking to name names, but Regina would like to know: is the conglomerate based on one particular tech company or an amalgamation of several different tech companies?
It is an amalgamation of several different ones. And, I think as the further we went into it, it narrowed in scope a little bit. But it really is, the idea is it's everything. So if we were to talk, X and Facebook and Instagram and Blue Sky and put them all together, it would be everything, doing all of those things at once. So it was
Ugh.
a collection of them.
That is a frightening piece of technology that probably is being like developed as we talk about it. And then Regina also has a follow-up question: does money just enhance the person you actually are? If you're a terrible person without money, wouldn't you be one with money times 10? That is such a great question. And
But
Regina, one thing that I find myself feeling a lot these days, and Matt, I would love to know, like, to get your thoughts on this. Um, but I sometimes wonder, like, if humanity, I think goodness takes work. It's a lot harder to be good than it is to be bad. And so I think we've been kind of led where it's like, oh, like all humans are inherently good and yet we get corrupted. Honestly, I'm beginning to feel like it's the opposite, where you really have to work at being good and, be raised to be good. In order for that to be kind of like your natural instinct. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on that, Matt? That's a great question, Regina. Thank you.
Certainly the last part that you said is raised to be good.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think a lot has to do with your upbringing and how much parental support and involvement and all of that you have. Um, and, again, I don't really know, but the adage always is if you become a billionaire, you had to trample some people on the way.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you're not a good person to begin with, Regina, right? If you had to trample the people to get there. So it wasn't the money, but it was inherently who you were. And there are exceptions to this. So I wouldn't want to label all the ultra wealthy or all of the billionaires as bad people, certainly. But it seems like so many of them are very self-involved and care only about themselves.
Yes. I like even not that I like know many billionaires, but just like people that I have come across like living in New York City. It's amazing when you do meet someone who's like, so like philanthropic and like cares a lot about their community and like has electric cars and like they seem like they are like a good person, but then like the self-awareness of like, oh, like this isn't to my standards, like I'm gonna like make this your problem,
Yeah.
and just having it be like, wow, like if I was given a coffee that, hey, it wasn't the best coffee in the world, but like, okay, who cares, like move on with my day. Like some people don't like everything has to be the way that they want it, even if the way that they want it is good. um
You
oh
know,
so
I
I
think
mean, oh, go ahead.
I think you were just in England in the UK.
Yes. Yep.
And I think, for hundreds of years, the ultra wealthy were the dukes and the lords and the
Mm-hmm.
ladies. And you just see all the time how far they are removed from the common person or the normal person. And they just literally do not understand their problems.
Mm-hmm.
Let them eat cake if they can't find bread, sort of thing. So, I think that it's been a way of the world for a long time from one culture to another that the ultra wealthy just don't have any common ground with the normal person.
That came up. We did a walking tour. It was a Jack the Ripper walking tour, which was very fascinating from like a historical perspective because you had the city of London, which was at the time, like in what was it, 1887. The city of London was extremely wealthy, and then the like outer London area, which is now today also like it's very like urban and part of like the city life, but in the 1800s, like that was the slum of the slums. Like it was just like I think they said the median or the average like life expectancy was 19 years old. It was just like a horrible place to live. And yet you had like just on the other side of the wall, like a thriving city with like the highest concentration of wealth, I think in like the history of the planet. It was just, it was so incredible to see that, how that played out. And it's just, oh gosh, it's such a fascinating topic that somehow we already have gone for 30 minutes. I'm like looking at the time, like, how did that happen? We have a farmhouse reader agreeing with our sentiments about billionaires and being just like, working towards that goodness. Like you have to be raised to be good in order to be good. It's not like inherent. And then Regina says, makes me think of the song I Don't Understand the Poor from the musical A Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder. Oh, why have I not heard of that musical before? I need to look at that.
That
I need
sounds
to look that
good.
up. That sounds right up my alley. Oh, thank you, Regina. Um, oh, wow. Well, this was a fascinating conversation, clearly, Matt, because it just like flew by. Um, tell us for the, tell us where you are online. How can people stay connected with you so that when the book comes out, everybody can go buy it and see what they have to be wary of for the future.
So it's pretty simple. My name's Matt Cost. My website is mattcost.net. And if you look me up on Amazon, you can find my books, 18 of them. And hopefully within the next week or two, there will be a 19th. And the second book in the modern day Chronicles of Max Creed will be out. Everything versus Max Creed.
Oh, a really great title. Really gripping writing. It's like again, like you're thrown into this like action movie and buckle up and get ready to enjoy the ride. And speaking of joy, what we like to do, Matt, to round out our episodes is there anything, since we've been talking a little bit about like the overlords that are watching over us, is there anything that's bringing you joy when when you're consuming it? You know, TV, movies, books that you've read recently, podcasts, any good stuff that you can share with us?
Um, well, I'll give a quick nod to Greg Hurwitz, an anti-hero, because his character is very similar to the Max Creed character. And so I read that recently, which is he's got 11 or 12 books in that series, and I enjoy that series a lot. It's right up the thriller alley. I recently read Joanna Schaffhausen's Gone in the Night, which was a very good read, very twisting, and had a lot of the same themes that I think I delve into. Um, I'm currently doing Julia Spencer Fleming's 10th or 11th book, Midnight in the is the Cry or something like that. So I've been enjoying those. I just finished on Apple TV Friends and Neighbors, which was very twisting and a good entertaining mix. And on Netflix is Homeland, which I'm only on season two. I believe there's 8 seasons, so
Oh, you got a
that
lot.
should keep me busy for a while.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Yeah, I while we were in London, I actually did start watching a new show, which was called like The Real Friday the 13th Murders. Um, it's on HBO, and basically it's a true crime show that features crimes that happened on Friday the 13th. And they kind of posit them as being these like, ooh, there's something like supernatural or demonic about them. But most of the time, it's just somebody snaps. And it was the first one that we watched was like this guy. I'm surprised it didn't make a bigger splash like on like the national media front, because he was like channeling Friday the 13th specifically, like being, what is it? Is it Freddy Krueger's from Friday the 13th, or is that Jason? I can't.
No,
I get them
Jason.
mixed. All right, I
Jason.
get them all mixed up. But he was like dressing. He dressed up as him. He was like going around town to like kill people. But luckily, he only managed. He had like a list of people that to kill, and he only did kill one. So it was like a still terrifying, but they stopped him before he could be really like awful. So that's my lovely
So
recommendation.
this is a little surprising to me. So far,
Really?
you've shared Friday the 13th serial killers, Jack
Yes.
the Ripper serial killers,
Oh
yet
yeah.
you write cozy mysteries.
Yes. It's I would love to know what goes inside my brain. Um, One thing that I find so helpful about watching this is that I try to keep my cozies rooted in kind of like a scientific reality. So like watching all these true crime shows, I know that how long it takes police to get information. So, sometimes you get feedback of like, oh, like wouldn't the police have done this already from an amateur sleuth's point of view? And it's like there are some times where police will not talk to their number one suspect for like 2 weeks before they get to them, and it's like it is mind-boggling how slowly the like justice system moves. So I find them to be very educational, and also like I'm very aware of like all the ways that, you know, that people can get you. So I'm very vigilant in my life, which is probably why I had all those questions about being a billionaire. It's like I would be terrified that somebody would like want to come after me. So I'd be like, I would have to be like completely reclusive and anonymous and all of that stuff. We have a couple folks, Regina just finished the Rogue Justice by Stacey Abrams, the second book in her Avery Keene political thriller series, So Good and Twisty. Thank you, Regina, for bringing that to my attention, because I love Stacey Abrams with all of my heart, and I love that she writes fiction. And so I'm actually going to go buy book one right now because I want to read her books. I love her so much. And I'm glad to know the book two is good and twisty. This was fabulous, Matt. I'm glad that we got to do this. And since this went by so quickly, it's a good thing that we have a bookish hour coming up where we are going to be featuring you and two of your fellow thriller authors. And we're going to be able to chat more about Max Creed, about all of the crazy stuff going on in how the world of fiction can sometimes mirror reality and vice versa. And so we'll have more fun times ahead. And that is June, I believe it's June, the night of June 3rd, if I'm remembering correctly. So folks, be on the lookout for more information. We'll have a special author panel bookish hour coming up for you next week live. But we also have another bookish moment tomorrow afternoon with Lisa Q. Matthews. So we're going to be talking about her new cozy mystery, Buried with Shamrocks. So we'll be on a lighter note, and I actually am saving another TV show that I watched so that I can share it then, because it's a little bit more cozier than the real murders of Friday the 13th. But I felt that, Matt, you might enjoy that vibe. So thank you. This was fascinating. As always, it was great chatting with you. We'll talk again soon. And folks, make sure that you're on the lookout for Everything versus Max Creed. Should be out within the next few weeks. And you can go to Matt's website. We'll have it in our show notes so that you can stay connected with everything he has going on. But until tomorrow, we will see you again, and stay bookish, everyone. Thanks for being here. Have a good one. Bye.
Thank you, Sarah.